Brothers, all I want is a cheap graphics card.
Graphics cards are coming down in price, but I think they can come down a little more.
Graphics card prices? Yeah, I'm not feeling too good, guys.
Never pay full price for Windows 10 or 11 again. With today's video sponsor, SCD Keys, you can get activated for as little as $15 using that coupon, BFTYC. Links in the description below. Some of the most requested videos here at Tech Yes City is when we mix in finance and then apply that finance to tech and see where things are going. And recently we had some major news come out of the United States of America that a major bank, the 16th largest bank in the US, has just collapsed, and that bank is the Silicon Valley Bank, otherwise known as SVB. Now, first thing I'm going to say here is that when you read these mainstream media articles, like for instance, Forbes had recently placed this bank in their top banks list, and then it collapses a month later, that shows you that the people putting out these articles do not care about you, the end person, the consumer, the end user, the average person in society. And then I see people on Twitter calling for a bailout, and all the bailout does is shift the consequences of the people who made poor decisions at these banks to the poor natural citizen in society who pays their taxes. Now, the reason SVB collapsed, it all started with them putting out an issuance that they needed to raise $2.25 billion in cash. And this set off a chain reaction where people then got nervous and said, why does this bank that's apparently in healthy condition need to raise these funds? And this led to a massive bank run where depositors then withdrew over $40 billion in funds, and then that made the bank collapse. However, the weirdest thing is that insider trading 2 weeks prior to this event had the CEO and other members involved withdrawing money from the bank. So there's a lot going on with this bank that's going to come to the surface in the coming weeks, but make no mistake about it, the real reason this bank collapsed was it made poor decisions, and the consequence of those poor decisions is that now they are out of business. And so this means that there's a lot of unsecured deposits with this bank that even aren't insured, because there's a $250,000 cap on insurance for each account. So after that, that money in the bank is uninsured. So there's a lot of exposure here for people to potentially lose a lot of money. Now, a lot of people are saying that there's still a lot of value in this bank and that they have high quality liquid assets. But the problem is I believe once they start digging into the balance sheets, they may find a similar scenario to what happened at that FTX exchange, where they had all these assets on the balance sheet that were essentially worth nothing. So that's the biggest thing that scares me. But also there's another negative effect that can come from this, and that's a contagion effect, where if other banks are loaning the SVB money and they have money tied up in this bank, then the dominoes can start to fall, and this can spread a contagion throughout the banking sector. Now, the problem here is versus 2008, is that in 2008, inflation wasn't anywhere near as high as it is now. Inflation's running rampant still in 2023. However, as opposed to 2008, inflation wasn't such a problem. And so the Federal Reserve came in, printed a heap of money, saved these banks from further collapse after Lehman. But this time around, if the Federal Reserve starts printing all this extra money and pushing it out, that can create and add further to the inflation fire. So there really is a massive deterrent from the Federal Reserve coming in and bailing out any of these banks this time around. Now that this bank's collapsed, this leads us into the second part of this video, and that is, what is money? Well, since the 1970s, I believe we've moved to not just a fiat-based currency system, but a fiat-based debt revolving currency system. And I do put emphasis on revolving because it involves basically taking off the gold standard and unrestraining how much a particular individual can borrow from a bank. And initially, you would have seen in the 1970s, inflation was very high. And that's because this new system came into play and took off the restraints. But this system also involves the next generation borrowing more money and creating more inflation over the last generation in order to work. And what we're seeing here, especially if we look at countries like where I'm at the moment, Japan, the demographics are highly deflationary because the next generation is not borrowing more, than the last generation. And this is also happening in America, the United States, United Kingdom to a certain degree, though that is offset via immigration. And this all ties back to credit creation theory. And this is what I believe is not just a theory, I believe it's reality. And that is when someone goes to the bank, they borrow money, but that money is created out of thin air. And the value that it's placed against is the collateral of the item that that said person is buying. However, if that person is to default on that loan, in the case of SVB, they've defaulted on loans, the person who is owed that money then takes that collateral, sells it, and has to destroy the money. That is basically the system that we live in. And so basically, if you have more defaults, then you have new loans being created in any year or any day, for instance, then that is deflationary in nature. And so what I believe is we've reached the end of the road of money supply inflation here, at least if the Federal Reserve doesn't step in and keep printing money. But the thing about the Federal Reserve is they have a mandate. They have to keep inflation lower than their so-called 2% target, which in itself, that's a separate topic for another day, was a target designed in New Zealand, which the target was originally designed to be minus 1% or plus 1%. So you start, the more you go into finance, the more you realize this is one can of worms that just keeps getting more and more interesting. But all I can do as an individual for you guys on YouTube is try to give you honest advice going forward on where things are going to go. However, my research with fiat currencies has led me to there's kind of like a rule book, like the 10 commandments, except the public is not aware of any of this. And unfortunately, a lot of us don't get educated at all about money, let alone the actual origins and the true nature of money. I find it quite ironic that even in 2023, we, the general public, still have theories on how money is created. It's absolutely absurd when you really sit down and look at it with critical eyes. So now you may stop me here and say, Brian, what does all this mean? And there's rules in place, essentially. As much as it doesn't seem like it, and as much as you see corrupt politicians and you see money being flown around in the crypto space, especially in 2021, there are rules in play. And those rules are now showing us that the opposite effect can happen to what happened in 2021. And that is a sharp contraction now in money supply in 2023. And I think we're going to see the sharpest contraction in the money supply that we've ever seen in our lives. And this is where it ties now into tech in this video. And going forward, it seems as if people are worried about tech prices. Say, for instance, NVIDIA charging, absurd amounts of money for an RTX 4090 or an RTX 4080, and AMD doing the same with the 7900 XTX, and then CPU prices getting out of hand. And here's where ultimately, if I look into these numbers and I see what's going on, money's becoming smarter. So when money contracts, it becomes smarter. That means consumers make more smart purchasing decisions. They're looking for better value for money because that money's harder to get. And so this means that they're going to be buying the best value products going forward. So if companies like AMD and NVIDIA and Intel are not offering the end user good value, then they're going to lose sales. It's very simple. We already saw this with the release of Ryzen 7000. We've also seen this with Intel's new graphics cards. They've had to reduce the prices of those significantly to compete with AMD and NVIDIA. So going forward, prices of tech products will continue to come down, especially the higher end items, because more research that I do, if I look at top selling CPUs, top selling GPUs in different countries, it shows that there is a threshold. For instance, the RTX 3000 series cards are outselling the RTX 4000 series cards. And so going forward, I believe tech products are going to come down in price. I believe competition is going to get better in the space, and I believe there's going to be a lot of hard sacrifices needed to be made from NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel, especially when Big Papa Jerome Powell over at the Federal Reserve is forced to not be able to print money again because he has to keep the economy in check. And so when we see these decisions being made, you can be rest assured that NVIDIA can't get absurd with pricing on their GPUs. Intel can't be absurd with their pricing on their CPUs and their GPUs, and AMD the same with their CPUs and GPUs. This puts a constraint on the companies themselves. It's simple. If they want to make money, it's better to make $100 than to make nothing at all because the person simply can't afford the price of the tech product. However, don't take my word for it. Just look at the prices of tech products right now. Everything on the high end is actually coming down, and that's happening on Amazon, the biggest retailer in America, with its ease of use and its ease of payment. So things are coming down in price, things are getting better for the end user, but make no mistake about it, I believe things are going to keep getting cheaper. Anyhow, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, then be sure to hit that like button. Also, let us know in the comments if there's any particular parts of today's video that you found fascinating, and perhaps I can do a dedicated video on that section itself. I am going to be honest with you guys, my passion has been leaning towards finance a lot more than it has in the past, mainly because if you start building up your wealth, it's important to not f up, because if you f up, you can lose a lot of money. And so I've realized I've been working so hard since I left university. And so it's really important going forward for me to make the right choices, and also along the way share that with you guys, because I'm sure a lot of you guys out there don't want to make the wrong choices either. I learned when I was out of university what it's like to make poor choices, especially in 2008, where you've got these media outlets that do not care about you at all. All they're interested in doing is plugging something that their boss told them to plug, and it's just ridiculous, because at the end of the day, they do or don't realize, but they're screwing over an average person who just wants to have a better future. However, that being said, going down this rabbit hole has led me to literally be absolutely fine in the last couple of years. When I've watched people lose money, I'm watching people sweat, I'm watching people scratch their heads, and I'm sort of navigating through this whole storm absolutely fine. In fact, I'm doing quite well. And, I've made recommendations on live streams, especially for the Japanese yen, for instance. I'm bullish on that. And that's a whole nother topic for another day. But the Japanese yen does, when I look at and correlate that, for instance, to international companies borrowing money at cheap rates from Japan, and when they default on those loans, suddenly the Japanese yen gets stronger and that money gets destroyed. That shows me that I'm starting to learn how money itself works. And when I'm learning that, I can make the right decisions going forward. And so when I do these videos, especially integrating finance, it feels like I'm talking to you guys, and you feel the pain that I've gone through in the past. And I do not want you to feel that pain. It does hurt and it sucks. And it's something I never want to go back to in my 20s, when that pain was happening and I was losing tens of thousands of dollars. And that was like, at the time, that was all my savings. I was losing a lot of money back in those periods. And the lessons I learned back then, however, was the price I paid. I'm guessing that a lot of you don't want to be left in the dark. You don't want to be the sucker that's sitting in the stadium when everything's collapsing and you haven't got to the exit doors fast enough, and then you're found that, hey, I've lost all my money, or I've made a really poor purchasing decision. I want to make sure going forward that you are not that person. Anyway, guys, I hope this video did not disappoint for those requesting it behind the scenes. And do let us know in the comments if you have any questions or comments about tech, about finance. Love reading those thoughts and opinions as always. Just like this question of the day here, which comes from Tortler1, and they ask 4K for CPU tests, even 4K low settings. Oh my God, what's the purpose of these tests? So they're referring to our 7950X3D coverage that we did on day one, where I decided to change things up and test at 4K low settings, because we're testing with an RTX 4090. I thought, well, the RTX 4090 is realistically going to be used at either 1440p or 4K. I haven't heard of one person using an RTX 4090 at 1080p yet. So I decided to even test at low settings just to see if you, say for instance, wanted to play competitively at higher resolutions, what could you see with the difference of these three CPUs that we had in that comparison. And the results were pretty interesting to me personally, and actually a lot of people liked it. So I may continue just doing 4K low settings, especially since every other tech reviewer out there is already doing your 1080p low benchmarks. Anyway, I'll catch you guys in another tech video, maybe even a finance tech video very soon. And if you stayed this far and you're enjoying that content, then be sure to hit that sub button, ring that bell, and I'll see you next time. Peace out for now. Bye.